Moving on, our main story tonight concerns bankruptcy. You probably know it from being the worst possible outcome on Wheel of Fortune, aside from hugging Pat Sajak or winning a Mitsubishi Mirage. Or maybe you're familiar with it through ads for bankruptcy lawyers like this one.
Once upon a time, there was a fair maiden named Mary. Mary lived a storybook life until her Prince Charming was smashed from his steed. Then her castle came under siege, and the cries of assault were vexing. Her champion had been gravely injured, and a pox had fallen upon her house.
I've helped thousands of clients like Mary, and I can probably help you get a fresh start.
Wow, there is a lot there. From an unmarked van fully mean-girlsing Mary's husband, to him surviving what appear to be surprisingly minor injuries, to that lawyer claiming he's helped thousands of clients like Mary, meaning that in the Chattanooga area there are somehow thousands of women who've watched their husband get shit-stomped by a cargo van and then take what can only be described as a Gatling gun of mail to the face. If that is true, they've got a way more lucrative lawsuit than a bankruptcy case. What that ad is promising, though, is really attractive. A fresh start from your debts. And it's something a lot of people have turned to. Over the past decades, the number of personal bankruptcies filed each year has ranged from about 800,000 to 1.5 million. And many worry that once the current pandemic assistance stops, more and more people will need the type of help that bankruptcy offers, because very basically, bankruptcy is a legal procedure by which those who are deeply weighted down by debts can get out from underneath them and then have a chance to start anew, which is good. Although it does come with some consequences. It will be on your credit report, and there tends to be some social stigma attached, as exemplified in this clip from Shark Tank.
Jeff, I understand your decision to go bankrupt. Cleans the slate. But it carries a weight. You'll never have a bank, Jeff. Ever. To me, you're radioactive.
There are a million people out there who are going to get the wrong message from what you're saying.
No, they're getting the right message. They should not go bankrupt.
Well, hold on, because that is a terrible lesson. And you, Kevin O'Leary, I hardly want to be calling someone's decisions radioactive, given that you invested in companies with business models like put your face on a potato, look like an idiot on a unicycle, and Toygaroo, the Netflix for toys whose mascot always looked like it was searching for a place to take a shit. And, which interestingly, filed for fucking bankruptcy. So I'm sorry, Kevin, but to me, that makes you radioactive. I'm out. But that broad brush stigmatization is common and completely misguided. Because bankruptcy is not solely caused by bad decisions. It's often caused by bad luck, unavoidable challenges like job loss, divorce, surprise medical bills, or perhaps even, a once-in-a-century global pandemic. And despite bankruptcy often being characterized as an easy out, the way it's currently set up, it's sometimes not an out at all, as this couple learned.
Before you're done and over with, you're definitely looking to spend at least $1,000 to claim bankruptcy. We don't have $1,000. So
you're telling me you can't afford?
We can't afford to go
Correct.
bankrupt. Yet we're $50,000 in debt. So what do we do?
Yeah, a lot of people can't afford to go bankrupt. A true sentence that fundamentally doesn't make sense. Like Sonic drive-ins advertised in cities where there are no Sonic locations, or the sequel to Now You See Me wasn't called Now You Don't, or Elon Musk doesn't fuck his cars. I mean, come on. That is the face of a man who's at the very least measured the circumference of the charging point. So given all of that, tonight, let's take a look at personal bankruptcy. Our modern bankruptcy code was enacted in 1978. Interestingly, around the same time that the credit card industry began to enjoy a period of steady deregulation, which worked out very well for them because they marketed themselves aggressively, and during this time, consumer debt began to sharply rise. And what the industry clearly wanted was people stuck in a lucrative cycle of minimum payments, late fees, and interest hikes. What they didn't want spoiling that was people cutting the cycle short through bankruptcy. So by the late 90s, they were lobbying senators like Chuck Grassley hard to curb what they framed as bankruptcy abuse, basically arguing that people who could afford to pay were using bankruptcy as an easy way to not pay bills and then pass the costs on to the rest of us. And Grassley seemed more than happy to repeat some of the industry's talking points.
There's not a single family in America, low income or high income, that is not paying part of the cost of bankruptcy. $40 billion cost to the economy every year. $400 for a family of four.
Wow. The average family pays $400 a year because deadbeats abuse the system. Grassley dropped that shocking fact with the confidence of a man who would later tweet from his government account, "Windsor Heights Dairy Queen is good place for you-know-what." The thing is, though, that $400 figure is total nonsense. No one knows for certain where it came from, and despite it turning out to be demonstrably false, the credit card industry pushed it hard to create a narrative of widespread irresponsibility and abuse around bankruptcy. But it's a little hard to take moral grandstanding from credit card companies who were all too happy to help people get into significant debt, even if they had just declared bankruptcy.
Barely out of bankruptcy court, Joan Burnett opened her mailbox and there it was. The chance for a shiny new credit card, the first of many.
It looked like an easy $3,000, and I think I hung on to it for a day, and then I thought, oh no, you're not going to be that crazy.
The banks are giving out credit with a reckless disregard for the consumer's ability to repay.
Yeah, that Max Weinberg impersonator is absolutely right. And so, by the way, was Joan, whose self-restraint I really do admire there. Imagine the expenditures that I could have avoided by simply saying, "No, John, you're not going to be that crazy. Ask yourself, do you really need this item?" But years of lobbying by the credit card and banking industry ultimately resulted in a hugely significant 2005 bankruptcy reform bill, which made it far more complicated to file for bankruptcy than it had previously been, which in turn made it far more costly, which meant many people ended up in a situation where they couldn't afford to go bankrupt. And to understand our current system, a key thing to know is that there is not one main kind of personal bankruptcy. There are actually two, Chapter 7 and Chapter 13. Chapter 7 is what you commonly think of as bankruptcy. Your debts are mostly wiped out, and while you can hold on to a few essential assets below a certain threshold, the rest can then be sold to pay off your creditors. It takes a few months to complete, but then you do get your chance at a fresh start. Chapter 13, however, is different. That is more of a reorganization of debt. Basically, your finances get examined to work out how much you can afford to pay into a repayment plan for 3 to 5 years. And if you make all the payments in that plan, at the end of it, your debts do get discharged. And this does have its benefits. You don't have to give up assets like a house or a car. But, and this is a huge but, if you miss even one payment, your case could be dismissed and the whole deal is off. You're essentially all the way back to square one. And the uncomfortable fact is, this happens in most Chapter 13 cases, because only a third actually make it all the way to discharge. And Chapter 13 is also actually much more expensive to file, because while attorneys charge on average about $1,300 to file Chapter 7, for Chapter 13, they generally charge about $3,800. So you might be thinking, well, if Chapter 13 is more costly, more difficult, and less likely to get you a genuinely fresh start, why would anyone choose it? Well, for some, it might be the right fit. Remember, it gives you a chance to keep your house, which you might need to live in, and your car, which you might need to work. But for many, many more, Chapter 13, despite costing 3 times as much in the long term, can actually seem like the better financial option when you file, because Chapter 7 generally requires you to pay lawyers up front, whereas Chapter 13 can be different, as law firms can be eager to point out to you.
Is debt constantly on your mind? Are you looking to get a fresh start financially? Then call the bankruptcy attorneys at Wooten & Wooten. We even offer a no money down Chapter 13 plan.
Okay, first, get the fuck out of my void, Wooten. I know I don't technically own the concept of sad white emptiness. Jared Leto's got the market covered on that one. But I will be damned if I let this adult who looks like he just made a wish to be big steal my whole vibe. But the point here is, if you are already in a bad spot with your finances, which you probably are if you're considering bankruptcy, no money up front might not just sound good, it might be your only option. The worry is that some lawyers guide their clients to the more expensive Chapter 13 when they'd actually be far better served with Chapter 7. And if you know anything about America, it will not surprise you to learn that when researchers ran an academic experiment, they found attorneys were more likely to recommend Chapter 13 to a hypothetical black couple, called, by the way, Reggie and Letitia, than they were to a hypothetical white couple called Todd and Allison. And putting aside the question of whether the researchers plucked Reggie and Letitia from the big book of stereotypical, but hopefully not offensively so, black names, the fact is the study's findings do help explain why nationally the odds of black debtors choosing Chapter 13 instead of Chapter 7 were more than twice as high as white debtors with a similar financial profile. So even bankruptcy discriminates against black people, which is coincidentally the cover story on this month's issue of Yeah, No Shit magazine. And the fact that people are often pushed into the form of bankruptcy with far less successful outcomes mean that they can end up having to file bankruptcy again down the line. And knowing that makes it a little hard to see financial experts like Susie Orman broadly frame repeated filing as a moral failing.
Most people who claim bankruptcy once claim it twice. So if you are claiming bankruptcy, you have got to learn. Because if you get yourself into that situation again, if you go out and you rack up all this credit card debt and all this stuff again, and you have to claim bankruptcy again, then I say, shame on you.
Wow. Susie is offering repeat bankruptcy filers the shame on you normally reserved for dogs who peed on the carpet and nosy pharmacists in Magnolia who've asked Julianne Moore one too many questions. I have sickness all around me and you fucking asked me my life? Have you seen death in your bed? In your house? Where's your fucking decency? And then I've asked fucking questions? What's wrong? You suck my dick! That's what's wrong! And you fucking call me lady? Shame on you! Shame on you! But a few things. First, experts say that Orman's claim that most bankruptcy filers file twice is just wrong, but much more importantly, even those who do end up filing a second time often do so due to factors that have nothing to do with recklessness, like, for instance, getting pushed into a Chapter 13 bankruptcy that was not right for them. And there is something else that can significantly limit the help that bankruptcy can provide, because there are whole categories of non-dischargeable debts, debts that even bankruptcy cannot get rid of. You typically can't wipe out debt from criminal penalties, taxes, or child support through bankruptcy, and there is another massive category, as this woman learned.
31-year-old Radmila Sulimonova graduated with a master's from New York University in 2008, during the depths of the Great Recession. Jobless, she quickly defaulted on her $80,000 student loan bill.
Oh, well, I'll just file for bankruptcy like everyone else is doing, ha ha ha. And then you realize, no, the only way to get away from your student loan debt is to die.
Yeah. And to communicate just how bad student loan debt is as a generational dead weight on millennials, I guarantee you, anyone with student loans watching this right now heard $80,000 and thought, yeah, I don't know, I've heard much worse. Because yeah, she could have bought this entire 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house in Indianapolis, but who really needs a place to live when you have a framed 8.5 by 11 piece of paper with your name on it? That can, just like a house, keep you safe from the rain. And if all that weren't bad enough, our current system adds insult to injury through mandatory credit counseling courses, which can be exactly as patronizing as they sound. Even bankruptcy judges have called them inane and a procedural hurdle without value or consequence, with one even noting a course referred participants to the local library for resources on bankruptcy and recommended they seek a job making higher wages. And I'm sure they had never thought of doing that before it was very cleverly pointed out to them. And if it seems that these courses may have limited value, one that we found online even seemed to reluctantly acknowledge that fact.
Your attorney may have gone over your particular situation with you in their office already. Perhaps they explained why credit counseling will not work for you. Many debtors, therefore, believe that this mandatory credit counseling exercise is pointless. We hope instead you will take a more positive view of this mandatory course.
Oh, you hope so, do you? That's basically an admission that the whole thing's a waste of time. Although, quick question here. Why is the attorney there cartoon me? He's wearing my glasses, he has my bangs, he's negging an unwilling civilian while waving around a boring amount of paperwork. The guy is more me than I am. And while at best an objectively hunky cartoon, lecturing you on your finances is annoying, at worst it can be actively insulting because the assumption in these courses is that you are in this position due to reckless personal behaviour. But imagine how that argument feels if you, like this woman, went bankrupt after having to leave your job to take care of your son who died from cystic fibrosis.
In September, we sat down to take the credit counseling course, and it was sort of a slap in the face, honestly. And we have not yet finished that course. We logged off and needed to walk away from it for a little while. And we'll need to do it again after we actually go through the filing process and meet with the judge. It's a requirement after you file as well, so that you can, I guess, get an idea of how to not do the same thing again in the future. So, which is an incredibly hurtful idea that I'm not looking forward to.
No, of course you're not. Because having a course suggest that there is a way not to have your child die again in the future is a fucking insult. And it is terrible that she not only had to go through that, but then had to rehash it in the Senate in an attempt to get that requirement changed, which, by the way, it wasn't. And the truth is, so much of what is wrong with our current bankruptcy system stems from that 2005 law that I mentioned to you earlier, expanding the non-dischargeability of student loan debt. That was in there. The mandatory credit counseling classes, that was in there too. The law also made bankruptcy harder to complete, adding over a dozen ways that someone could make a technical error and be dismissed. It was a huge win for the credit card companies, and for all the assurances from Grassley and others that it would target high-income people abusing the system without hurting those of lesser means. After it passed, bankruptcy filings dropped disproportionately in poorer neighbourhoods, with filings there decreasing 32% more than in rich ones, showing that, as always, when things are designed to become harder for everyone, for the rich, they just become a bit more expensive, and for the poor, they become basically impossible. So what can we do here? Well, ideally, the people responsible for that 2005 law would acknowledge that our system badly needs fixing, and coincidentally, one of the most prominent backers of that law is actually the fucking president now. Joe Biden is from Delaware, home to some of the biggest credit card companies, and his support was crucial in getting the 2005 law passed. And it is not like he wasn't warned that it could lead to trouble. When it was being debated, Elizabeth Warren, then a Harvard law professor studying bankruptcy, testified about how medical debt ruins people's lives and how this bill could significantly hinder their one remaining chance to get out from underneath it. And Joe Biden kept shifting focus back to the poor creditors who wouldn't get their money.
Until we fix the broken healthcare finance system,
right,
those families have to turn somewhere. And that means now they turn as a last-ditch effort to the bankruptcy courts.
And that means they turn to asking the people that they borrowed money from to pay for their health care cost, right? We're going to ask the gas company, the drugstore, the automobile dealer to pay for the broken system.
Okay, but that's not really how this works, is it? It's not like we're living in some small town in the 1920s, racking up debts to the corner store for groceries, the butcher shop for meat, and the local pharmacy for cough drops laced with weapons-grade cocaine. No, we're living in a world where medical debt is out of control, and people have envelopes rammed through their door every day screaming that they're pre-approved for a credit card. Oh look, this one has Snoopy on it! Now, the good news is, in December, Elizabeth Warren proposed the Consumer Bankruptcy Reform Act, which would completely overhaul our bankruptcy system. It would eliminate excessive paperwork needed for filing, thereby lowering attorney costs. It'd make student loan debt dischargeable. It'd get rid of the requirement for a credit counseling course, and it'd combine Chapter 7 and 13 into a new, more flexible Chapter 10. It's a combination that would be an improvement, sort of like Burger King's chicken fries. Little bit chicken, little bit fries, all in a box that looks like I asked my kids to draw me from memory. And while Biden has broadly expressed support for Warren's reforms, the fact is her plan is unlikely to pass in its entirety because it would need 10 Republicans in the Senate to get on board, because Democrats like Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema are still in a death cult over the filibuster for some reason. But the fact is, something big needs to happen here, because we badly need to get our broken bankruptcy system working again for people who desperately need a lifeline. And meanwhile, while we wait for Congress to act, the very least we can do is offer an alternative credit counseling course that isn't quite so insulting.
Hello there, I'm the Cartooniverse's steamiest wonk. If you're watching this video, chances are you've hit hard times. Maybe your husband was pancaked by an unmarked cargo van. Or maybe you lost your job due to the coronavirus and that fateful day in 2019 when one bat fucked that other bat. Either way, you're saddled with debt right now and you're looking for a fresh start. Thankfully, you found Bankruptcy. Lest that is your debt is student loans, in which case you should think about faking your own death, because odds are you're as fucked as this bat. Under current bankruptcy law, you're required to complete this credit counseling course. And the key thing I'm here to tell you is there are two main kinds of personal bankruptcy. Chapter 7, that's the thing you think of as bankruptcy, where typically most of your debts can be discharged, and Chapter 13, which you might assume works similarly, though anyone who's been through it knows that it doesn't. And if all this seems needlessly confusing, it's because it is. The whole system is currently designed to be so discouraging that eventually you say, fuck it, and give up. Ouch! Are you okay? So instead of watching a condescending series of videos about how to make a budget, why don't we both make better use of this time and enjoy this video of a man feeding a pack of raccoons individual hot dogs?
Yes! Yes! Yes!
Look, filing for bankruptcy will never be as enjoyable as a raccoon eating a hot dog, but at the very least, it should be that simple. Bye.
That's our show. Thanks so much for watching. We're off next week, back May 2nd. Good night.